Tepu, assalamu alaikum, namaste, harun nefer. This is Qesankh with another exciting video for you. In this video, I'm going to talk about why I worship Jesus. What? But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button on this video. If this is your first time to my channel, hit the subscribe bell to get notifications on when I go live and when I upload recorded videos. And if you'd like to know more about my spiritual teachings, I do have 4 ebooks available. You scroll down in the description box and you can click on them and download them today. They're free. However, if that's not enough and you want to learn more, you can become a Patreon supporter for as little as $1, $5, or $20 per month. You will get exclusive access to instructional videos on the esoteric, on the spiritual, videos that will teach you how to meditate, how to astro project, how to heal remotely, how to do self-hypnosis, how to contact the ancestors and spirits. And if you are an Osiris or Osiris supporter, you get all your oracles for free. Best of all, it's no obligation to be a part of Patreon. And don't forget to share it with family and friends so we can get the revolution started. All right. Harun nefer, Grand Rising. This is Qesankh. How are you? I want to talk a little bit about the subject of Jesus because I was doing a ritual last month and I had incorporated Jesus into the ritual. And I said to myself, Self, you have never talked about incorporating Jesus. Now, a lot of people in the woke community will not like this. Yes, because they want to talk about the good ship Jesus in 1555 by John Hawkins. He brought a bunch of slaves. So there is a lot of, let's say, controversy around this, especially in the woke community. Is it called the woke? Well, you can call it the Black nationalists or the Hotep community or the woke community. There's a lot of controversy around this. But please, don't nail me to the cross. Ha, 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 ha. Let me explain. Let me explain. You see, when they brought our ancestors here, they picked one of the most educated slaves who had good oratory skills to preach to the slaves from a specific Bible that redacted passages, pages that were against slavery. And they made sure that this slave who is preaching, and you can see it's actually in the Nat Turner movie, they made sure that the slave endorsed slavery and told it was godly, it was Christian, that these slaves behave and don't rebel. And they did this with each plantation to pacify the slaves. But some of the slaves got hip to it and rebelled anyway. And modern psychology, these psychiatric psychopaths would write documents and books endorsing the inferiority of Black people, talking about if a Black person rebelled or left the plantation, he suffered from a mental illness. And that Black people by nature were not Christian, not godly. So they incorporated what they called was manifest destiny, which means the end justifies the means. I dated a girl who was Israeli. Beautiful woman. And when I say beautiful, I mean inside and outside. I jest there. That's a joke. When we went to dinner and we spoke about the Middle East, I was shocked at how she did not see the Palestinians as the Palestinians as human beings. She called them evil, subhuman. And when I looked in her eyes, even though we were dating, I could see the passion and the truth behind what she was speaking, that she felt this way. And this type of attitude and thought process is what caused the transatlantic slave trade. The looking at us as dehumanized chattel that they were authorized by God, the Bible, to enslave. And part of that, was to Christianize them. Now, we know that Columbus wasn't the first to discover America. It was Amerigo Vespucci. But when Columbus, and I believe he was looking for the India, came, he enslaved the native people, chopped their heads off. They were playing soccer with their heads. This is historical. I'm not being hyperbolic. One of the things that he did was, and they did, was burn them at the stake if they did not accept Christianity or Jesus. When the slaves did accept Jesus, what the slave master found when he entered their place of residency, which is just a barn, a filthy barn, or some type of makeshift house, was that alongside of the statue of Jesus and Mary, they had Ogun, or they had Osiris. And the slave master couldn't understand how they were worshiping both their traditional African gods and Jesus. This perplexed them. And I'm going to give you the answer to this. And the reason being is because you have to understand the mind and how it works, which these ignorant fools at the time didn't. You see, people of color, the black slaves, were predominantly right brain. The right brain seeks to incorporate, it synthesizes, it seeks to see how things are similar, not different, but similar. As you see in this diagram I have here, the right brain is intuitive thought, holistic. It looks at things in a holistic way, and I'll get into that. Holistic perception, random sequencing, emotional thought, nonverbal, adventurous, impulsive, creative. This is where you get your filmmakers and your artists, your painters. Creative writing, art, imagination, left field vision, left side motor skills. Now, the slave masters, the white people, or you want to call them Europeans, were predominantly left-brained. Analytical thought, detail-oriented perception, or ordered sequencing, rational thought, verbal, cautious planning, math, science, logic, right field vision, right side motor skills. The important thing that you have to note is that the right side of the brain is synthesis, where the left side of the brain is segregative. So, whereas African people always look to congregate things, see how they are alike, and bring them together in a synthesis, the left side of the brain would always, white people, look at segregated, how things are separate and different. Add to that, the left side of the brain is concrete thinking, looking only at the external, the color, the race. The right side of the brain thinks abstractly, so it looks at the spirit, looks at the fact that you're a consciousness, that you're not a race, a color. So the African people being predominantly right side had no problem incorporating Jesus and Mary into their traditional African religion because they thought in a way of synthesis, bringing things together, seeing how things are alike. and worshiping the two. Okay? And if you take a look at our spiritual tradition, the Kemetic Egyptian spiritual tradition, which most of these Hotepers who are phonies don't subscribe to, and you need to read the Metu Neter, which most of them have not and don't subscribe to this either, or either, you will see that we focus primarily on the Pot Netru, and that is the tree of life, where you have what we call, as the Egyptians called, Pot Netru, the company of gods. And you may see this some similarities with Kabbalah in this tree, but it's not the same. Now, in this, you will see the different deities on different what we call spheres. But the unique and interesting thing about these spheres is that each deity, like Seker, Tehuti, Oser, is one half of a whole. I'm going to say it again. One half of a whole. In other words, you cannot have Oser without Oset. You cannot have Ma'at without Tehuti. Ma'at and Tehuti are husband and wife, brother and sister, but Ma'at sets the law and Tehuti tells you the measure of the law, when to apply the law. That is really sophisticated thinking. When you look at Sebek, who is logical facts, deals with language, he's complemented by Tehuti, who's intuitive. He goes within for wisdom, that he does not rely on information, because information is the realm of Sebek. There is a hierarchy and an ordering with these deities where one depends on the other. This is why in ancient Kemet, you saw the female principle with the male principle always, the pharaoh and his queen, the pharaoh and his queen, always consistently. This is a cosmological arrangement. Okay. How does this relate to me worshiping Jesus, as you may say? Because many of you may get angry and say, Jesus has led our people astray. Our people are corrupted by this idea of Jesus. And you're absolutely right. If you go to Nigeria and some parts of Africa, their Jesus, and Dr. John Henry Clark said this once, they have become Jesus freaks. This is when he came back from, I think it was Nigeria. And he couldn't believe how hardcore they were about Jesus. White Jesus, too. Not black Jesus, white Jesus. And when I dated this woman who was Nigerian, we had instant problems because she was a fanatical believer in Jesus. Instant problems. She talked about how she saw Jesus, and I tried to break it down and explain to her, as I'm going to do to you. You see, when I was talking about the ritual and what I was doing, I was incorporating the right brain synthesis. I said to myself, I can have Osir and I can have Jesus, Black Jesus. Because number one, Jesus is a plagiarized version of Osiris. We all know that. And Mary is a plagiarized version of Oset or Isis. But it goes further than that. Because if I just did that, if I just looked and said, well, Jesus is a plagiarized version of Osir or Osiris, which would be true. And by the way, this is my Oscar. I want to thank the Academy and thank all the little people that got me to this position, and wait for my next film. It only gets better. All right. Okay. But you see, we as African people think abstractly. So the Bible is meant to be interpreted abstractly and not literally. See, when you have a white man or a woman teaching you from the Bible, they're going, because they're left brain, They're going to see everything literally because they think concretely. Left brain thinks concrete. But the people who created the Bible, the Africans, the first Coptic church, the Christian church was a Coptic church. This was allegories. It was analogous to certain things. The Bible is based on, and many people don't like this, astrology, astrotheology. But let's look at this from a magical occult perspective, because we are all magi, we're magicians. We understand that which cannot be seen, because Nikola Tesla, one of the world's greatest inventors, says the minute we start studying the things that we cannot perceive, we'll make more advancements in the world. I chopped that up, but you understand. So the idea is that when we talk about pendulums, Get Reality Transurfing, a great book, talks about pendulums, or ergobores. We know that racism is an ergobore. It is a thought virus. See, our ancestors knew how to create spirits, ergobores, or pendulums. We would create spirits to go out there and do deeds. They probably could kill a political leader. They would influence the weather, influence people's minds. Yeah, it is. I mean, come on. Jesus is Pisces. The whole thing about Jesus walking on water, Pisces. Think about it. Look at it. Because we're looking at it too concretely. It's astrotheology. The Bible is really an occult book. And type that in Amazon, and you'll see many authors who have dissected the Bible in accordance with the zodiac. But I digress. So when we understand the occult science of creating an ergobore or a pendulum, this is why when you go into a corporate setting, a company, they have their logo, which is really, what is their logo? The logo is really a sigil. That's all their logo is. It's an occult practice. It's a sigil. And one of the things they want to make sure is that you mesh with the culture, the corporate culture, which really is, there is an ergobore who governs that corporate culture. And if you don't align with it, that ergobore gets you out. It's a spirit. Just as billionaires have their own ergobores or pendulums that you'll never become a part of, because it will push you out. It is a spirit that only makes them money and more money. Evil or racism has an ergobore or a pendulum that influences people, screws up their mind. And it was purposely created. I don't want to go into that right now, but it was purposely created and fostered by the ruling elite, the oligarchy. And they did rituals to strengthen this ergobore or this spirit. Now, when I say to you that one of the oldest deities on the planet is Heru and Osir, there were massive rituals with thousands of people in ancient Kemet that did rituals, collective rituals to Osir, where we have our basketball game, our football games, and soccer games. They had massive stadiums doing rituals for the deities. And that energy, what do you think happens to that energy? That strengthens the ergobore, the spirit, to where the spirit has a mind of its own. It achieves a certain level of consciousness. Now, let me separate. A deity is different from an ergobore. All right, I'm going to separate the two there. But I'm trying to get you to understand that that energy can be applied to a pendulum or an ergobore. Jesus has been worshipped for a long time. It's the new kid on the block, because there were many pagan religions before Jesus that existed long before Christianity, older than Christianity. Christianity is a new kid on the block. But even so, that energy and that love and that passion that people around the world have for this Jesus, which is really the white man, it's an avatar for the white man, but I'm not going to get into that right now. That ergobore or pendulum of Jesus has a certain consciousness to it. This is why we say the Christ consciousness that really exists. And if you petition it correctly, it will heal you. It will do things for you. The same with Mary. You see, when you think abstractly, you know Jesus never really existed. A man named Jesus existed, but you know that it does exist as an energy that has been created by thousands and thousands and millions of worshipers on the planet. And that energy has to go into something and become something, a pendulum, an ergobore. And that if you petition it, you will gain favors in certain ways. And Haru, being one of the oldest deities on this planet and has been worshipped long before Jesus, if you petition Haru, you will gain, gain certain favor from Haru if you do the proper ritual. So when I incorporate Jesus, I'm not actually incorporating a man that I think walked the earth called Jesus and walked on water. I'm incorporating the ergobore, the energy of Jesus, to help me in my endeavor. Because I don't see a distinction. I am looking at things from an abstract perspective that we're all energy, consciousness, not physical, not the avatar. You get that? Class dismissed. But too many people, especially in the Hotep community who haven't really studied Kemetic spirituality or the Kemetic mystery system, will look at what I'm doing and actually think I'm worshiping a man that walked around named Jesus. No, I am thinking abstractly through the right brain, and I'm seeing that this thing that we call Jesus has achieved a level of an ergobore or a pendulum. It has achieved consciousness as a spirit, and that I can petition it to grant me favor. And we have to stop thinking like them. We have to stop this left brain wayward, backward thinking, applying the left brain to everything in life, thinking it can solve all the problems. That is the problem with the world. The problem with the world is that we have incorporated left brain and it has run amok. We have applied left brain thinking that it has no reason to be there because that is the domain of the right brain. The left brain cannot tell you if abortion is right or wrong. Only the right brain can tell you that, because the right brain is the seat of morality. No congressional meeting or bills to legitimize or make illegal abortion can determine what is right. Only the right brain, the aspect that turns inward for intuitive wisdom from Tahuti or the Akashic records, can tell you what's right. And the mere fact that these people who've taken over the planet and applied the left brain to everything, you'll see in their TV shows. What's in their TV shows? Cunningness, materialism, dubious nature. They worship that. They worship that. If you beat the system, if you're cunning and beat the system, they worship that. No, that's not the world we want. See, they worship and love Sebek so much that they value information above wisdom. They talk about, you want to know something, get all the books you can and just read. But they never talk about going into the meditative states to access the Akashic records and bring down the wisdom and knowledge. Downloads, which now the occult community is starting to realize that you can download information. When African people have been doing it for thousands of years, they're only now realizing it. My brothers and sisters, take the moment to donate to this channel. Your donation would be really appreciated. I want to thank you for tuning in to this broadcast. This is Qesankh Ma Keperu, son of Ma'an Tahuti. My aunt is the beautiful goddess Heteru. Until my next broadcast, Amen Ra.